Welcome everyone for the first session of this series, Radiobiology. So, what do you mean by radiobiology? It is a study of the effects of ionizing radiation, such as X rays or gamma rays, on biologic tissue, that is, human body, the organs that we are irradiating. So, we have all heard that X rays are harmful, and the harmful effects include skin burns, cataracts, cancer, and leukemia, which is another type of cancer. Then we have to know that how much radiation is needed for these effects to be seen in a human body, because we are using X-rays and other ionizing radiation for our benefit. So, the duty of radiologic technologists, radiologists and medical physicists is to maximize the benefits of this ionizing radiation with minimal radiation exposure. So, the principles such as ALARA come into play at this point. Okay, so let's see what happens in a human tissue when it is irradiated with an ionizing radiation. So, when a human tissue is irradiated, the reaction happens at the atomic level. So, the radiation comes and hits the atom of the human tissue, and then two types of reactions can happen. One is excitation and the other one is ionization. So, excitation is what is the energy transfer from the ionizing radiation to the atom which is irradiated, and there is no removal of electron from this atom. It's just energy transfer, and the atom becomes excited. And the second interaction is the ionization. We already know that ionization is the removal of an electron from the atom. So, the ionizing radiation will interact with human tissue to produce ionization, and both the ionization and excitation results in the energy deposition in tissue. And there are a lot of effects which happens as a result of this energy deposition. So let's have a look at those. There can be molecular change or alteration because of this energy deposition, which happened because of ionization and excitation. So the molecular changes can be any of these. The first one is DNA damage. We all know that DNA is the genetic material of a cell. The second one is generation of reactive oxygen species, which includes the free radicals and highly reactive hydroxyl radicals and all. So those are called reactive oxygen species, which cause further ionization and damage to the cell. And those are called ROS, reactive oxygen species. The third one is RNA and protein changes. So DNA is a genetic material, whereas RNA is responsible for protein synthesis. And if RNA is getting damaged, the protein synthesis will be affected. So all these molecular changes can either lead to cell death or recover. So any of this can happen. So cell death may be because of the cell injury, which is caused by the radiation injury, and it can be of two types, deterministic effect and the stochastic effect. And deterministic effect appears within days after irradiation, whereas the stochastic effect is not seen for months or years. So the deterministic effect and the stochastic effect. We'll just cover the basics here. This is usually asked in the competitive exams. It has been asked in the previous year questions of AIIMS CRE and other competitive exams. So deterministic effect is dose dependent. It has a threshold, which means the effect will only happen after the threshold for that effect is crossed. Okay, and the severity of the effect increases with increasing radiation dose. For example, in the case of skin erythema, the severity of the skin erythema increases with the radiation dose that is received by the patient. Or other harmful effects such as hematologic syndrome or gastrointestinal syndrome happens when the threshold for that effect is crossed, and the severity of such effects increases with increasing radiation dose. So for less doses, skin erythema may happen, but for higher doses, hematologic syndrome and other harmful effects may happen. Okay. Now, the stochastic effect, incidence of radiation response increases with increasing radiation dose. Now, there is a difference. Here, it was severity, and once the threshold is crossed, we are sure that effect will happen. But here, we are not sure whether the stochastic effect will happen, and we don't know the threshold for any of these effects. But we know that the incidence or the probability to happen for that effect to happen increases with the increase in radiation dose. For example, a person getting one chest x-ray a year has very less probability of developing a leukemia or other stochastic effects than a person who gets, say, 10 CT scans a year as part of some follow-up. So, the incidence of the effect increases with increasing radiation dose. Now, let's go through the examples of deterministic effect. There are 4 categories that we are going to discuss. The first one is acute radiation syndrome, and this happens in very high level of radiation exposure, say in cases of radiation leakage or atomic bomb explosion, etc. The first one is hematologic syndrome, that is drop in blood cells. And the second one is gastrointestinal syndrome, the symptoms of which are nausea and vomiting. And the gastrointestinal epithelium is getting affected here. And the third example for acute radiation syndrome is CNS syndrome, that is central nervous system syndrome. And you would have already guessed it, it affects the brain and the nervous system, and that will result in the seizures or coma. And all these happen at very high level of radiation exposures. The second type is a local tissue damage. The first example for that is skin, and in skin we can have erythema and ulceration. So erythema is the redness of the skin or the skin burn. Ulceration is like this. And in case of gonads, the person may develop temporary or permanent sterility. And in case of extremities, erythema again, and necrosis of tissues can happen. And the third type is hematologic depression, which is marked by reduced WBCs, that is white blood cells. And the fourth one is cytogenetic damage, which is the changes to the chromosomes. So with this, we'll wind up the basics of radiobiology. In the next class, we will discuss the human populations in whom radiation effects have been observed, and this has been asked in several previous year question papers of AIIMS CRE and other competitive exams.